Founding Fathers propaganda on the screen. It's a good place to listen.
So we're talking about arrays. And we just heard the definition for an array was, what was it again? The large, impressive...
Yes.
I forget it. Say it again.
I'm Austin.
Austin, array Austin. Give me the definition.
Okay, an impressive display or range of a particular type of thing.
So, it's an impressive collection or a range of a particular kind of thing. So if I was to say, does it make any sense to say, I looked and beheld an array? Does that mean anything? But if I was to say, hey, wow, I looked across this room and I beheld an array, what's the immediate question you have?
Of what?
Yeah, an array of what? What is it? What do you think? So a large, impressive collection of, what would it be? Maybe students, computers, chairs, or desks. No, it's an array. It is an organization, a grouping. Say it again, Austin.
An impressive display or range.
That's enough. An impressive display or range of something. So here's the problem. Almost always, when we talk about an array in programming, we stop there. We say, yes, this is an array. But just like in ordinary English, in computing language, an array is an array of something. And if you never know what an array is of, it's mystical. This is one of the worst experiences I ever had in learning to program. Did I tell you this? My father taught me how to program. In 1979, my family was visiting Uncle Jim's house in the Avenues in Salt Lake City. We were visiting for the summer, and while we were staying there, the house caught on fire. Huge house. The whole thing didn't burn down, just the top part. It was big. A lot of these houses, you've been to the Avenues, a lot of these houses are really huge. And the house was split up into, had a couple of smaller apartments at the top. The guy in the top level fell asleep. Lit the house up. I'm sleeping in the basement. And it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. My father is not one who's, prone to jocularity. And so when he came into my room and said, son, the house is on fire, the fire department has asked us to leave the building. You wake up to a message like that, I knew that he wasn't joking. This is not, I'm not sure I've ever heard my father tell a joke, or maybe 2 or 3, but they weren't very funny, but, so I got up. I went outside. There's fire trucks everywhere. They're spraying water on the house. My dad was a builder, wasn't a computer programmer, but Uncle Jim was a brilliant computer programmer. In fact, we used to play boggle with Uncle Jim. That summer, we were playing boggle with Uncle Jim. And we would play the whole table against Uncle Jim. So Uncle Jim would write, and the rest of us would try to keep up. And we very rarely would collectively beat him. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. There would be lots of words that he would see. He just didn't have time to write them down. That word's only 4 letters. It's not worth writing down. Someone else is going to get that one. I'm just going to write the ones that I can see. Uncle Jim hired my dad to rebuild his house, the part that burned. And as part of payment, he taught my dad how to program. And had to build it, how to program. After he learned to program, and then Uncle Jim hired him. And he worked for Uncle Jim in Silicon Valley for 3 or 4 years. So the company he was working for got bought out, and then he went back to building. This was kind of strange for him. But during that time, when I was like 14, 15, 16 years old, right when I was about, thinking about computers. My friends that had computers were like the Commodore 64. But we had pretty serious business computer. That's where I learned how to program. He taught me how to program. My dad was never a very good programmer. He was never a very good teacher. And sometimes the combination was painful, as it was when he tried to teach me about arrays. Dad, if you're listening to this, I love you. I finally learned them. And he keeps trying to make a metaphor. He says, okay, arrays are like pigeonholes. And I didn't know enough at the time. I'm like 14 years old. I didn't know enough at the time to say, Dad, I have no idea what a pigeonhole is. I imagine it somehow involves a bird and a hole. We probably spent 20, 30 minutes trying to understand what an array is based on this idea of a pigeonhole. Finally, threw that metaphor out and said, okay, it's like post office boxes. Now, I grew up in rural San Diego County, and our post was delivered, not unlike the way it is here. There's like a box out on the street. It's a mailbox. It's a one box. And we've got a couple next to each other. In our case, sometimes there's like 20 next to each other, but all the folks that live that way, you had to come to the front to get your mail. And so he's talking about post office boxes, and I think he means mailboxes. I've been to the post office a couple times in my life where they have nice, orderly arrays of post office boxes. But that wasn't my understanding what a post office box was. Within an hour of this, I was in tears. He was in tears. My son's a moron. I went away from that experience having no idea what an array was. And I think the big problem was I never knew what it was an array of. But you're in luck. I'm going to tell you what it's an array of. Are you ready? Talk about an array. It is always an array of variables. That's what it is. What's a variable? What is a variable? It's a named location in memory. And so when I have an array, Austin, again, what's the array?
I closed the call. Give me 1 second.
It is a large, impressive collection of some particular thing. We're talking about a large, impressive collection of variables. It's a bunch of locations in memory, each with a name. That's what it is. And so today, we're going to get introduced to arrays. You're in luck. As it turns out, I'm a pretty good programmer, and I'm a pretty good teacher. So I expect no one to be in tears by the end of class today. We're going to get this. All right. Now, so I think we have some file to download from Learning Suite today. What is it? Something about hotels like the Starwood Corporation. Oh, I love this movie. Oh, Thursday Night Football. I can stream it live. Learning Suite. In my life, I went to exactly one professional football game. My grandfather, did I tell you this? My grandfather took me. It was the San Diego Chargers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a Sunday. And the whole time I was there, oh my gosh, we're breaking the Sabbath. This can't be honoring the Sabbath the whole time. It was a terrible experience. And I think I have disliked professional sports ever since. Although, I did go to a few more college football games. You may be surprised to find out I was at the Miracle Bowl. Yeah, so you know what the Miracle Bowl is. What's his name? McMahon. Where McMahon took the Cougars to overcome like a 40-point deficit in the last few minutes to win the game. We left 20 minutes early. I was there, baby. We listened to it on the way home. Okay. Okay, a little bit behind today because we had that reboot and we had to reinstall it. Okay, there it is. Starwood.xls. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go ahead and open it and make it an XLSM straight away. So we'll have ability to save our macros. Enable editing. I'll save as Starwood _ fall of 17 XLS. Okay, so here's what we have. This is pretty boring data, but it's just like here's the number, here's a particular name of one of the Starwood resorts or hotels, some number of square feet, address, city, state, zip, just some information. In fact, I wrote a program in class once to collect this information, and there was something wrong with it, so some of these are not quite right. Like you've got like the Sheraton in Atlanta being somewhere besides Atlanta. This one's not the one, but anyway. Well, we've got some data here. The interesting data for us here is actually on the distance sheet. So imagine, the context for the example that we've been building today, imagine you've been hired by the Starwood Corporation. Just freshly minted out of college, and you're hired by the Western Regional Division for the Starwood Corporation. They said, listen, we've got 35 properties that we're going to be focusing on. Some of these are good properties. Some of these are properties that really need some help. But before you show up, no one knows you yet here. I want you to go to all these properties, 35 of them. You've got 3 months before you actually come to work. Go to these properties. We'll give you a corporate credit card. and eat at the restaurants, go to the gym, swim in the pool, go to the masseuse, all on the company, and take notes, and I want you to understand, what it is that we're dealing with out there. Great. You think that's pretty good, except for what? I'm married. I got kids. No problem. Rent a van, take the kids, and go. Enjoy the road. Okay? Not bad. Did I mention the masseuse? Yeah, the masseuse. So great. There's these 35 properties. What order? So you might ask, what order do you want me to go to these in? I don't care, but you just have to go to all of them. Okay. So what order do you want to go to them in? If you could describe the route that you want to take to solve this problem, to go, what's the characteristic of the route that you like the most? It's the shortest distance, the shortest of all time, because every minute in the van with the kids is one less minute with the masseuse. And so you'd like to have the shortest route. Okay, so fortunately we have the distances. These are road distances between all these properties, and so. Maybe we're going to start at the Sheraton the Sheraton City Center Hotel in Salt Lake. It's the closest one to us right now. And then you want to know how, let's see, I'll put that one right here. Sheraton. You want to know how far it is to Phoenix? It's right there. How far it is to the one in Las Vegas? That's the number right here. So between Salt Lake and the one in Beverly Hills, it's 700.17 miles. So using this information, that should be helpful for us to try to figure out this route. So, any thoughts? How are you going to do it? Come up with an algorithm. We're going to write a program. We're going to write a program to pick a route today. So, how are we going to do it?
You start from whichever one you start with, and then go across the road and find the minimum value there. Go to that one, and then the next step would be going from that one, going across this road, finding the minimum.
Okay, yeah. So go to find the closest one. And that you haven't been to, haven't been anywhere yet. We're starting off. So find the closest one, the shortest distance. And then from there, that's the next step in the route. And then from there, say, all right, well, who's the shortest distance from here that we haven't been to? Great, that's the next leg of the route. This is a pretty reasonable thing to do. Virtually guaranteed not to give us the shortest route to do that. So, nice algorithm. In fact, it's probably the one we'll implement today, unless someone comes up with a better one. But chances of that producing the shortest route are virtually nil.
I know Dijkstra has an algorithm for this.
Who does?
Dijkstra.
Who's Dijkstra?
He's a programmer. It's in CS236.
Oh, Dijkstra.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this guy's old school. Yeah. It's a famous problem. In fact, do you know what this problem is called? Traveling salesman problem. And mathematicians spend their careers working on this problem. There's only one known algorithm to give the shortest route. You know what it is? Calculate all possible routes, choose the shortest one. That's it. We've been working on this. We have some shortcuts that we can think, we're 99.9% sure that we've got the shortest route here, but, we're not positive. Literally, since the 1700s, mathematicians have been trying to solve this problem, and we have no guaranteed solution besides generate all possible ones and just see which one's the shortest. 35 properties.
36.
There's 36 properties?
Yeah.
Okay, 36 properties. So, how many routes are there? What's the expression that tells us?
Factorial?
Yeah, that's factorial, yeah. So 36 factorial. Fortunately, in Excel, there is there's fact function, which gives us 36 factorial. I never was very good with scientific notation, so let's get this into decimals. Oh, there we go. We don't need the decimals. That's just making it look worse than it is. We don't need those two decimal ones there. That's how many, for this relatively small problem. I've got to make a route with 36 properties. That's how many different possible. I thought to myself, I should do this. I got a computer. I wrote the algorithm to calculate all possible routes, and it started to run, and it ran overnight. It wasn't done by the next morning. So I stopped it. I thought maybe it was a problem. Looked at it, not a problem. So I thought, how long does it take to calculate a route? That's what time. This is some time ago. I timed my computer, and it could calculate 5,000 routes in a second. That's pretty good. So how many seconds will this take? That divided by 5,000. That's how many seconds. How many hours? Divide that by 60. No, minutes. Oops. That's equals this divided by 60. That's how many minutes, how many hours. This divided by 60. I'm having a hard time typing. Did I get it?
Yeah.
6. Divided by 60. How many days? About this point, I'm realizing
You need a quantum computer.
that I need a bigger computer. In fact, it wasn't too long ago that I heard the 1 billionth PC had been produced. So let's just use that as like, let's get to years first. Divided by 365. That's how many years? That's how many years. What if we put all the computing capacity of humanity against this problem? We'll use that billion number as a surrogate for current computing capacity. Divide this by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how many years it's going to take. Best scientific estimate for the age of the universe?
15 billion.
Oh, very good. Yeah, about 20 billion years.
20 billion?
Yeah. Does that seem like a lot or not so much?
I don't know.
What's the national debt? If you stacked $1 bills up, how high would they go? To the moon 56 times. The good news is they're $100 bills, they don't want to make it halfway there, so it's not so good. Okay, so look. To solve this problem, if we use all of humanity's computing power, it's going to take 117 trillion times as many years, trillion times as long as the universe has been in existence. You can't solve. You can't solve this problem. There's no brute strength way to solve this problem. By the way, is this a problem that people have to solve? Yeah. Who has to solve this? Thousands of times a day.
FedEx.
Airports.
Yeah.
Airlines. They have to decide. Well, it's a different problem.
It's a similar problem. Deliveries, right? I have all these destinations that I've got to get to once today. So anyone that's doing delivery, UPS, Federal Express, the problem they have to solve. Their problem is more complicated because a left turn is much more expensive than a right turn. And so not only are you figuring out the distance that you want to minimize, you want to also take into effect, well, if I go around the block this way, it's better than going this way. It's a serious problem. By the way, will Google do this for you?
Yeah.
You can put some routes in. It'll tell you how to get there. You want to go to all these places. It'll tell you. I don't know if Google does it. You can add a route and it'll put it in. There are some places that you can say, yeah, we'll build a route for you. Yeah, up to like 15. 15, it's solvable pretty quickly. Once you hit about 25, it's not going to happen. 35, you can see the problem. And so, what we're going to do then today is we're going to get exposed to arrays, and we're going to solve this with the next nearest hotel algorithm. Start in Salt Lake, find out what the closest one is. So, we're not going to get that completely solved today. We're going to do this today and Wednesday. But we're going to get started. And in the context, we're going to learn about what an array is. An array of? Variables. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave a little bit of that worksheet poking out there. And I am going to view my project. Insert a new module. Got a new module going in here. Beautiful module. Starwood Corporation, module number 1, super. So let's start off with this one, and let's just call it initialize arrays. Maybe just init. INIT _ARRA. Okay. Now to understand this, so far every place that we've put arrays, the only place that we've declared declared variables is inside of a subprocedure. And that means if I declare something in here, dim array, or dim hotel, as string, then this variable, it's a local variable. It is only available inside this subprocedure. It's declared inside this subprocedure. It can be accessed from anywhere inside this subprocedure. So if I want to be able to access it from outside this subprocedure, no good. So here's what I can do. I can move this declaration from being inside to being outside. So it turns out we're going to want to be able to access these variables from different sub-procedures. No big deal. I'm just going to declare them at the top of the module, and they become module-level variables. They're available for anywhere inside the module. With a little more work, I can make it a global variable. It can be anywhere from any module inside my project. But for now, we'll just declare it at the top and be a module-level variable. So right now, I have declared one variable. What's the name of the variable? It's called hotel. And what is a variable again? It's a named location. It's not just the location, but the name is really part of the construct of a variable. So it's a location and memory that's got a name. And so here it is. When I execute this, the VBA interpreter says to the operating system, hey, give me some memory. I got to keep track of some hotel something. And it goes, great. Here's some memory. No one else is using it. It's all yours. I'll make sure no one else uses it. And it binds that name hotel to that location in memory. I refer to hotel, and he goes, yeah, we know that place you're talking about. Here's how I make an array of variables. Are you ready? Now, I'm not declaring one variable. I'm declaring a bunch of variables.
Don't you want 36?
I do want 36. In fact, I have 36. In this language, what I stipulate is I stipulate the upper boundary of the array. Arrays start counting at 0. Truth is, I could make my arrays start counting at 1. Option base 1. I'm saying option base 1, when I declare this array, it now will have 35 variables in it, numbered 1 through 35. You might think your life would be easier with option base 1. Don't put option base 1. Leave it as option base 0, or just don't put it at all. And here's the reason. Almost everyone who programs in VBA uses it with the default variables. And if I teach you how to work with variables with 1-based indexing, it's going to be a huge hurdle for you to be able to move to 0-based indexing. When you come across a 0-based array, it will be very difficult for you to grasp it and to work with it. But if we learn with 0-based arrays, making the switch to 1-based arrays is a breeze. So it's a little bit more difficult to start with 0-based arrays, but it makes switching back and forth way, way easier. So we're going to do 0-based arrays. Plus, some of the properties that we're going to use when we get to building user forms, the property itself is an array. And no matter what you say about option-based, it's always going to be 0-based. So we're going to start here. So I have created this array. What is it? What did I really create? An array of variables. What other kind of arrays could we have? Can we have an array of something else in programming? In VBA? No. It's always an array of variables. That's what it is. And that's why we will just say an array. Well, why we don't call it an array of variables? Because it's like, oh, good, because I thought you were going to make an array of worksheets. No. I thought you were going to make an array of cells. No. It's always an array of variables. Okay. So I made a potload of variables. Here's the key. Because I have a number that's part of the name of the array now, that's part of the name of each variable, I can now use any expression that evaluates to a number to specify which element of the array I want to talk to. So I can now do this. If I want to put a value in this, I could say, all right, hotel, maybe I'll call this hotels, since I'm going to have multiple hotels in there. Hotels, and then I just say sub-0. That's going to be my first one. I can say that equals, and I'm just going to pull this text in. We're going to get a little more sophisticated here, but I just want to show you in the simplest case what it looks like. So this is a normal variable assignment. I've got some variable over here. How many variables am I talking about right here? Yeah, just one. How many are in my array of variables? There are 36 of them. There's a whole bunch of them there. But when I put that index on them, I'm talking about one. I've identified a particular variable in that array. So if I think about what the name of this variable is, now there's two parts of it. There's the name of the whole collection of variables, the whole array of variables, and then there's a number, which gets me to an individual element in that array. But other than that, it's just like a regular old variable. It's just a location in memory that I can put a value. Now, some other things we can do. Let's do hotels sub 1. So now, of course, this one I could pull the value by reading from the worksheet. cells sub row number 3, column number 1, dot, dot. What is that going to put into the second slot in my array? The second variable. It's going to be the Sheraton City Center Hotel, Salt Lake City Hotel. It's going to put that, whatever string we have there. So, but where this becomes really powerful is when we say, well, instead of referring to these individually, I'm going to write a loop to do this. Let's declare another variable. X as an integer. For x equals 0 to 35. Next. Now I'm going to say I want to put some value into each slot of that array. So what do I have to do? I want to fill up this whole array with all the names of those hotels. What changes do I have to make? What do I put here?
X.
I put X here. And then I got to make sure I'm getting to the right row here. So what would this be?
X plus 3.
X plus 2. When X is 0, I want my row to be 2. When X is 1, I want it to be 3. So as they advance, I'm just going to move down. I'm going to comment out these first ones. Leave them there kind of for your example as valid ways to do this. And in fact, let me also do this. Because I've got, I guess I don't have different sheets. I want to make sure that my property sheet, my distance sheet, is the active cell, the active sheet. So let's go ahead and activate that one. Sheets, distance, dot active. Okay, so now when I just say cells, I know I'm for sure on the right sheet. Okay, so now, hey, let me just do this again. We go ahead and just make another loop here. And again, from 0 to 35. Now I just want to print this off, just so I can see what it's doing. Debug.print. Let me go ahead and print X, and then hotel sub X. So now, if I run this, it should declare, well, it's going to declare my array of variables. We'll declare one variable here, activate the sheet, and we're going to go through, the first time through, X is 0. Hotel sub 0 equals cells, row 2, column 1. Next, I hit next, it was X by 1. Hotel sub 1 equals cells, row 3, column 1. So they'll both just move down. They're not moving down the same, right? Because one is offset 2 from the other. But that'll give me the indices to read and write the data that I need. So now if I run this, that should print off those values. And there's number 0 is Los Angeles, Salt Lake City is number 1, Sheraton. We've got all those things in the variables. This is what makes arrays powerful. It's the ability to have a loop that processes all the elements in that array in a consistent way. I don't have to have 35 lines to load this array up, or 36 lines to load this array up. Go ahead.
What's the separator? Is it always just comma?
So what's the separator? You mean right here? What goes in?
Sorry. Like if you were to say question mark hotels array, like you're saying what is the whole array equal? Is it always going to be separated by commas?
Oh, you want to see the whole thing that's in the array.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. As it turns out.
Wait, that's not crazy, right?
That's crazy. As it turns out, in respectable modern languages, you could say, just show me the array. And it would just give you a comma-separated list of all the values in the array. When was VBA made? The 1990s, the early and mid 90s. And it's based on a language that's even older than that, going back to the 70s. There's no way just to say, print this array, or give me this array. If you want to print the array, how do you do it? You get a loop, just like this. That's why I made the loop in the first place. You want it to go as comma separated? Okay, I'll do this. Hotels, I'll put then a comma. Let's see. I'm going to put a semicolon there, and then in quotes a comma, then another semicolon. When I'm doing a debug.print, or incidentally when I'm writing out to files, which we'll learn later, the semicolon suppresses the native urge to put a carriage return character at the end of the print. So now when I say print and the thing ends with a semicolon, it's just going to put comma space.
it's going to print those out all on the same line. That'd be better if I was at the end. So now I've got a comma-separated list of the names. So you want to do something besides just look at these one at a time? You've got a loop. You've got to do it yourself. Okay. How are we doing so far, folks? Any tears? So far doesn't look so bad? Yeah?
Is there any reason? Because I have sheets, same thing typed up there, but for some reason it says active method of worksheet class fail.
The activate. I think you probably have active spelled. So let's get activate.
Yeah, that's what I have.
We got it. So two things. Number one, make sure that the workbook is the active workbook. And if you have other workbooks open, it's okay, but just make sure this one's the active workbook. And if it's still giving you that problem, it's check spelling. Make sure distance is spelled right. Make sure activate is spelled right. Okay. If this is all there was to arrays, no one would cry over them, but it gets worse. Okay. I mean, it gets better. There's more to it. There's more great, wonderful things that we can do. Incidentally, so now I could declare, how many variables can I declare at once? Can I declare 350,000 of these? I got like 16 gigabytes of memory. I don't think that'll be a problem. Let's run and find out. No problem. But now that I could be making lots and lots and lots of variables at once, now is when I need to be thinking a little more circumspectly about what data type I'm using. Because now I really could get myself into a situation where I'm using up so much memory that I'll have performance issues. We'll stick at 35. Okay. So I've got a distance array. I've got the hotels array. Let's think about, so we've talked about the algorithm that we're going to use to solve this. Now let's think about it in the idea of using arrays to be able to help us solve this. Let's think about step by step, how are we going to build this solution? Let's make a picture of it here. So I've created one that's really more just for looks. We can do this all with the numbers, but it's kind of nice to have some names to put to these. So we can think of it this way. I've created an array. I'll just draw it out here. It's not really a worksheet. Let's see, how many do I have? That should show me how many I have. Oh, there it is. Rows, 34, 35, 36. Okay. You don't need to do this to solve the problem. This is just me talking about what we've got here. I've got some borders around here. I have created this structure here. Why don't we call this hotel? Hotels. And then I've got indices here. 0, 1, 2. And I'll copy that down. So I can think of this as being, this is what the array is like. Now, what is it really? It's a long chunk of memory. By the way, it's contiguous memory. In memory, the array starts here, and it just is the next amount of memory that takes me across. That's what an array is. So it's not really in a grid. It's not really in a list here. It's just a bunch of locations in memory that are all lined up right next to each other. So here's one array. Let's think about how we're going to solve the problem. How are we going to calculate, or how are we going to record this route that we're building? Ultimately, we've got to present to the user, start in Salt Lake, go to Las Vegas, then go to Los Angeles. I don't know what it is. I remember Las Vegas. I solved this problem like 10 times now. Well, maybe more. But Las Vegas is next from Salt Lake. Then we're going to Southern California. So, how am I going to keep track of the route that I'm building? Any thoughts? Think deeply about the subject matter for today and say, maybe we will use an array. So if we're going to make an array, keep track of the route, what data type? Remember, it's a variable. These are arrays of variables. I got to choose a data type for all the variables in an array are of the same type. So what should we? We're going to create an array. Let's call it route or route. Let me say route. Let me say route. interesting. I don't really have a strong opinion about it. We're going to need something similar to what we had for hotels. We're going to have 36. We're going to say one of them is here. Now, what data type should we use for it? So it gives some possible contenders. Number one, string. We could put the name of the hotel there, Salt Lake City. Whatever the one is in Las Vegas or whatever. Other possibilities. Yep.
You could just use the integer value from your first array.
Aha! Maybe we could just put a number there. So in other words, if Salt Lake City, let's go ahead and I'll just put a couple values in here. Salt Lake City, I have to remember that number 7 is Las Vegas. So if I was building my route and I said start at Salt Lake City, then go to Las Vegas, I'm using indices from this array, what would I put over here? 1 goes here. Center these. 1 goes here. What goes here? 7. Yeah. And then if the next place was, I don't know. I don't remember the next one. Maybe it's 12, somewhere in Los Angeles. Then the next route is 12. So we're keeping track of the indices here. All right? So our route then is going to be an array of integers. Could use byte probably, but we'll use integer. So let's declare an array for that. Dim route sub. We need 36. So what do we put here? 35, same as before, as integer. Let's go ahead and, while we're initializing the hotel array, in fact, as we look at this route array right now, remember that all variables have a default value. I declare the variable, and what happens? The VBA interpreter asks the operating system for some memory. It gives back the memory, and immediately the VBA interpreter writes a value to that location in memory. What does it write for all values, for all numeric variables? 0. So when we're starting off here, this is really not blank. It's 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It's zeros all the way down. There's a question over here. Now it turns out, hotels is blank. Each one of these is a 0-length string, so that's a little bit better to think of as blank. So the problem that we have here, and we probably wouldn't realize the problem until it hit us in the face later on, but what this currently says is it says, go to Los Angeles. This is something in Los Angeles. I don't know which one this is. We've got 2 hotels. We've got several hotels in the LA area. I'll call this in Beverly Hills. So the problem is right now, by default, this says, the whole route says, what? Just go to Los Angeles. When you're in there, go to Los Angeles. After that, go to Los Angeles. This is going to end up being a problem when we ask, when we figure out where we're going next, we have to ask what? Have we been there before? And if we ask, have we been to Los Angeles, what's the answer? Yeah. Right now, the answer is yes. So let's change this so it's not yes all the time. So, in-class exercise. What I want you to do is I want you to modify the code to put a -1 into every slot in the route array. I'm going to give you exactly 2 minutes to think through this. By the time I find my timer application, it'll probably be 1 minute. Stop.
Negative 1, right?
What's that?
The value needs to be -1.
-1. In every single location. How many think I already got it? You?
The most you've understood so far? Have you tried arrays before, or is it the first day? All right.
Oh, that's funny. When my phone is on mute, it doesn't ring. So time's up for 14 seconds. That's fine. All right. Who says, yeah, I totally got that? How many lines of code did it take?
One.
You did one line of code? Who did it with more lines of code? How many lines?
I did 3.
3. So you made another loop. Mm-hmm. So you went through the hotel loop here, and then you just made another loop that looked just the same.
Yeah.
A reasonable thing to do. You got the hotels lined up, you probably did something like this. You said route sub x equals -1. This totally solves the problem. But what I want you to think about is we've got a process right here that's taking a variable from 0 to 35. We've got another process right here that's taking a variable from 0 to 35. So how can we do it in one line?
Put it in that.
Yeah. We can just take this line, the loop necessary, and we can plug it right into this one. My spacebar has stopped working. So now we're adjusting 2 different variables each time through this loop. We're going to, when x is 0, we're going to adjust hotel sub 0 variable, put a value there, and we'll do route variable, route sub 0 variable. Question in the back.
Could you not just set the dim to be default -1?
Aha! In some languages, you can do something like this. Declare that, and then put equals -1 out here. No good.
If you put a colon in it,
A colon?
after the integer, so you do colon and then route equals -1.
Oh.
I just googled it. That's what I know.
You can do the whole thing like this? You know, I never knew this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can put them all in at once. The colon's not magical. That just puts it on the same line. It's another statement. So we could do that whole thing down here. Route equals -1. I've been programming in VBA since 1995. Not kidding. I never knew that. I wonder if that's fairly new. It might not be. It might have been around since the very beginning. I just never knew. We'll do it this way because we're trying to understand loops anyway.
Why are we trying to get -1 in the route?
The question is, why do we want -1s here? And the answer is, you know, I'm trying to decide, should I put this in -1s now while we're building through it, or wait until we bump into the problem? Ultimately, here's what's going to happen. We're going to have to say, all right, let's assume this. We've been to Salt Lake, and now, through some magical way, we knew that Las Vegas is the second place. So now, we're at Las Vegas, and we got to ask ourselves, what's the next nearest hotel?
Salt Lake.
It is. Salt Lake really is. So if we go and look at our distance here, and we say, all right, we're looking at the Las Vegas line, which is from here, Las Vegas, from here and over. My mouse isn't responding so well. I want to find the smallest. What's the smallest number? Where's Las Vegas? Here's Las Vegas. So if I look across here, this one to this one, what's the smallest number? Find the smallest number. What is it? Go right back to Salt Lake. In fact, if we just pick the shortest number, this would be a bad trick. Salt Lake to Las Vegas. Where? Salt Lake. Where? To Las Vegas. It's like a shuttle driver, back and forth. And so we have to have some way to be able to say, okay, yeah, but have we been there yet? And so we're building the route array. How can we tell if we've been there? If we're looking at this array, how can we tell if we've been there? Yeah, how can I tell if we've been to Las Vegas? Well, Las Vegas is number 7. How can we tell if we've been there? 7 is somewhere in this array. So the problem is that 0 is a valid index for one of our properties. And if this whole thing has zeros in it, when we ask, have we been to 0? What's the answer? Yeah, we've been there. Don't go there now. And we'll end up never going to that place because our route is telling us you've already been there. And so, yeah, so this is, I almost hate to do it this way, but it's going to make our lives easier as we move down the road. We're kind of building this thing in order. is to say this is we're going to run into a problem if we don't do this, and the problem is we've got to look at this array to figure out how we've been. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
So then the negative one is particular. It could be 37. It could be just any
Yeah,
number that's not-
that's right.
The question is, what's so much about -1? And the answer is, what's so much about -1 is that, yeah, my arrays can never go, my array index is never going to go below 0. Now, I might modify this problem and, kind of push things up a little bit bigger, make it bigger. And so no matter what number I pick above this to plug in there, that could be one that my problem is going to have to expand into, but it's never going to expand into negative territory. But you're right. The only important thing here is that whatever number I put in there, as long as it's not one of my hotel indexes, I'll be okay. I can put 500 in there, it'd work just fine. 0 through 35 is a problem. Anything else would be okay. Okay, now, as we're building this problem, so here's how we're building it. You know what? We're saying start in Salt Lake. We're gonna actually put Salt Lake here, so we'll put 1 there. I'm gonna end up putting a 7 there as our second stop. But now we need some way to figure out what is the distance from Salt Lake and all the rest of the places. Now, it turns out we have it on the worksheet. Could we solve this problem without arrays at all? Yeah, we use a range. We could address it almost the same way. But we're using this as a context to learn about arrays. And so we'll do the same thing with our distance variables. So let's do this. Let's take, let's make another one over here called distance. Copy the indices. And transpose the indices up there. Because I don't really need it that wide. Hard would be to put this grid in here. Guess I want 36 by 36. Not that it's important to have the lines in here, but. Okay. How far is it from Salt Lake to Salt Lake? So that's 1 to 1. How far is the distance between these two properties? 0. Now, I can figure out this part right here because these are all going to be zeros. I'm not going to put them all in case you're worried. We'll get a few of these. Okay, so now I've got to get the values into the rest of my array. So what number do I want to put right here? Well, read off the worksheet and find out what number that is. It's the distance between Salt Lake City and Los Angeles. It's 300 and some odd miles. What is it? Or no, it's more. It's like 600. 691. So we got to get the number 691 here. 691. And then we get the next one in here, the next one in here, and so forth. So that's going to take a loop. Let's give it a shot. We could get this started in the same loop, but this one's going to get a little bit ugly. I think we're going to be better off if we make another loop for this. For x equals 0 to 35. Next. Oh yeah, here's the thing I forgot. This is now a bigger kind of array. So far, what we've created here is an array with 36 elements, but only 1 dimension. This one is an array with 36 times 36 elements in 2 dimensions. It's a 2-dimensional array. In fact, in the very early days of BASIC, the only time we ever declared a variable was when we were making an array of variables. The keyword dim comes from declaring arrays. It comes from the dimensions of the array. That's where the word comes from. And so, let's go ahead and make our distance array. Dim distance
I'm going to leave the parentheses empty for right now as single precision floating point number. That'll let me handle with the 0.3 miles and whatever. So now, how do I tell it 2 dimensions in here?
35, 35.
Yep, I just put them with comma separated. 35, comma 35. So is it rows first and then columns, or columns first and then rows? It doesn't matter. As it turns out, this organization of thinking about this as a set of rows and columns, it's a conceptualization that we make for us to think about. As far as the computer is concerned, it doesn't really care how we think about it, as long as we're consistent. So if we want to think rows first, then columns, which is the way I recommend it, and that's the way we always do indices in Excel, you can think of it that way. You want to do columns first and then rows, that's okay, as long as you think of it that way. If you want to think, I got 35 buckets, and inside each of those buckets, I got 36 buckets, and each side of those buckets, I got 36 boxes, then you could say, okay, well, what, the first one's going to be my bucket number. I'm talking about bucket number 4, and inside that bucket, I want box number 17. You can think of it that way as well. So it's just a way for us to organize it. How is this really organized in memory? It starts at a memory location and puts all the values in one long row, one after another. It is a contiguous sequence of memory. So now, just like here, we have to provide one indice to be able to get to the variable I'm talking about. For this one, we'll have to provide 2 indices. So I've got another array here, another loop here that I'm going to use to load the distance data. So if I'm thinking the indices are row first, and I want to write these ones right here across the top. And again, this is in memory, so I'm not actually going to write them out to the worksheet here. We're doing this in memory. My row is going to be 0, and then I'm going to go column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so it's going to be distance sub 0. Every one of them 0. I'm just working on the first row so far. Every one of them 0. And then I'm going to be x. That is going to equal cells row number, it's always row number 2, and then it's going to be column number, where are we? Distance sheet. So when I'm writing to my 0th position of my array, I'm reading from column 2. So it's going to be x plus 2. Yeah. First of all, if I put x equals 2 here, would this even work? Truth is, I leave the line, it doesn't give me a problem. If I put x equals 2 here, what does it mean? It's checking. No, it's not assigning. It is not assigning 2 to the variable x. This now becomes a logical expression. We're now saying x equals 2. First time through this, x is 0. X equals 2, what does that mean? False. False, by the way, is 0. And so it would write to the 0th position each time. So that's one of the most confusing things. You make a typo like that and wonder, my goodness, why isn't it working? Because it can actually evaluate. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. So when we think about this, as this loop goes through, x is going to go from 0 to 35. Row is fixed here. First dimension is fixed here. And so we're going to read right across this line. I'm going to put a breakpoint. I'm going to put a breakpoint here. If you want to, I don't think we've ever seen this, but you can put a breakpoint in code with the keyword stop. Stop's the breakpoint that's just written in the code. You hit the word stop, it takes you to break mode. I'm going to run this code to there. And now all these arrays are in memory. I can look at hotels, which is sub 4. It's the Phoenician. Hotel sub 5. Westin Kierland Resort and Spa. It'd be pretty boring to go snooping around route, because what's in route? Yeah, they're all -1. And now I should be able to look in distance. Well, row number 0 is the one I've written to so far. And let's look at column number 5. 392.56. So I should be able to come to my distance. Distance. Count over here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. 392.56. 392.56. Look at the next one over. And there it is. Beautiful. Feel pretty good about it. Yes?
Do you have the debug.print somewhere in your...
No, I don't think I have any debug.print. Do I? No, I got rid of them all. I never had them. Distance. No. So I think I had a loop below earlier that was printing them off. I got rid of it. I don't even remember doing it. Yeah, no debug.print. So, but of course, as soon as I hit a breakpoint, it puts me in break mode. All my memory is still allocated. I can pause right here and go snooping around, seeing what's inside all these locations. It's important because the variables are non-visual. I can't see them. I have to do something to see their value, to print it out, or incidentally, there's not a bad time to look at this. If I choose View Locals window, it shows me all of my local variables. So in Module 1, let's see. Oh, so in Module, it's not inside the, I got to expand Module 1 here. Here's hotels, and it's array, and it shows me everything that's in hotels. I can look at distance. It doesn't give me as a grid, but distance. Oh, so here's distance sub 0, and then here's all the values in distance sub 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the locals window. Okay. Now, we have to do something similar to this 36 times. Right? We've got this loop, and we want this loop to happen 36 times. Right? So how are we going to make this whole loop happen 36 times?
Put in another loop.
We'll put it in another loop. I'm going to stop my code here. I'll build another loop around it. In fact, I may just highlight this whole thing and hit tab to bring the whole thing in a little bit. And I'll do for y equals 0 to 35. Next. As soon as you start nesting loops with next, it's kind of nice. It allows you to put the control variable here on the same line. It used to be required that you put it there, but they took that away. So you just put next and it would figure it out. But now you can say next x and next y, and you can realize it's also not bad for a small loop like this, but if these things get more spread out, it's nice to know which variable is actually being incremented. Now, I've got to bring y into it. So where I got this 0 here, I'm going to put y. Now, which row am I talking about? So the very first time I write to a row, it's going to be first time I write into my array, it's going to be row number 2. Second, so when my y is 0, this should be 2. When my y is 1, this should be 3. I've already got a 2 there, so it's really just 2 or y plus 2. As a matter of fact, do 2 plus y or y plus 2. Either way. Stay with me on this one, folks. I'm going to put a breakpoint right here. We're going to run to this one. Variable not defined. Oh, I haven't declared y yet. So I'm going to declare it at the top. Then y as integer. Okay. So we've come here to this loop. I'm going to step into it with F8. Just going to go one line at a time. It says, great, we just set y to 0. Y now equal to 0. Well, it was equal to 0 before. X equals 0. It was already 0. Now we're writing to a location. We get to the next x. Where does it take us to? Back up to this one. And it's going to go through that until we get through 36 of them. I don't know how close I am. I've got to be close now. Just like the wheel spinning. Ah, there we go. So we got past that one. Now we hit this y, back up to the top. So we're back. We've incremented y now. And now we're starting into this loop again. Now y is 1. X is question mark y, comma x. Y is 1, x is 0. We'll run this once. Now y is still 1. We're moving x up. And it's just going to, while y is 1, x is going to go from 0 to 35. Y is going to go up to the next one. 2, or 1. Where are we? 1. So we go to 2, and then x is going to go 0 to 35. Y gets the next value, x goes across them all. Y gets the next value, x goes across them all. Okay. You take the breakpoint off and run this the rest of the way. Now I've hit this stop. So now I should be able to look into distance. Row number 5, column number 7. That's the distance. Row number 15, column number 27. That's the distance. Row number 1, column number 7, that's the distance. I got them all. Now, what's going to happen if I look at row number 7, column number 1? Why is it 0? Oh, yeah, we read it from the sheet. When you read a cell, if it's blank and you treat it like a number, it goes, oh, you mean 0. You mean 0. And it put all these zeros in here. Truth is that we could work with this just the way it is. We've got enough data here. You want to know the distances between this Scottsdale, you look this way, and then you look this way. But our array is a square. It's all that we can't declare a triangular array. The array has to be fully specified. And so what would make our life easier if we had a number here? What number would make our life easier if it was right there? 691, yeah. If that number was right here, and if the right two numbers were the ones that are in here, then I could pick a row. And I can just go across that row, and then I would have all the distances from that location to the next. So now, let's just think a little more sophisticated about this loop. The first time through this loop, there's no reason for me to actually read this location. It's 0. That's the default value in the array. It's going to be 0 anyway. So when my row is, let's think about in the case of the array, when my row is 0, what's the first column number I have to read? I don't have to read 0. I have to read 1. When my row is 1, what's the first column I have to read? 2. Whenever I look at this, think of the numbers, is that my column always has to be 1 higher than the row. There's no reason for me to start off my column index here to start off at 0. Where can I start it? 1 larger than y. So now I'm going to read the whole thing across, then the next little part, and I'll keep moving over as I go down. Last trick, and we'll call it good for today. Whenever I put a value here, when I put this value here, what else do I know has to go where? That's kind of a weird thing to ask. What number belongs here? Yeah, it's the one that's just in the analogous position. When I'm looking at row 1, column 0, it's the same as row 0, column 1. I just have to transpose the indices. So I can write the same thing, but just transpose where I'm writing it to. And that will specify that full distance array. So now if I look at distance 7, 1, I should have exactly the same thing as distance 1, 7. That array now is completely filled with those numbers, and we're ready to start calculating this solution, is what we will do the next time we work together. Hopefully we'll be able to finish it just in one class. Okay, two-dimensional arrays. Anyone have tears coming to their eyes yet? How many dimensions can we have in an array? As many as you want. You can think about 3 pretty easily. You got to think about 4 dimensions, it gets harder. But you can. My whole programming career, I've needed to make a more than 3-dimensional array exactly once. So, all right, thanks for coming, folks. Class dismissed. We'll see you on Wednesday.
So I realized that
think it's my computer. So I opened up previous assignments and it was doing the same thing. And then I logged on a VM. Said I logged on.
Oh, VM here?
Yeah. I work in IT. It's at a VM.
I've never been that
Check. I have Bitdefender on.
Disabled downloaded.
Okay.
So that work just links on the
Okay.
No, I require
How'd you interview go?
I felt really weird about it. It just felt like a weird. Actually, just did. He said he was kind of recommending.
Emailed you. Having trouble finding stuff on expedition and
So, I'm curious though, I'm like, should I email him back and just say thanks, or should I,
that's how I think
ask him for advice first?
yeah.
Would I be weird? By the way, let's get some advice here. We're gonna take this. He's gonna recommend it.
That or, I mean, I'm sure they're just funneling down. I don't think they would just recommend one of us to advance. I mean, there's what, 3 rounds? So, and 4 people, so maybe with each round they can drop one person off. Or maybe they like taken 3 or 4 certain finals round just ahead. You know what I mean? Because you take one person to the final round,
I'll probably have a start
you're banking on that one person. You can flip, you're banking on that one person to pass the final round. And that's like, if you take 3 people to the final round, well then, you know, one of them doesn't make it. So it's 2, and then you've got a backup in case the first one doesn't make it. Who else interviewed?
Wait.
I know, I thought
The week you were working up here, right? I'm not looking at this. Yeah. Okay.
Well, you didn't make the end of stuff. No. But, position, only other 5 there.
I mean, this is now. Break mode, stop right here, so 5.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah,
Moving on to the next round. Be good.
I'm flying out to Exxon.
Are ya? You and Aaron.
Second one throw 36.
Email him saying, hey, fly out Wednesday this week or Wednesday next week. So you be leaving tomorrow or Tuesday next week.
I didn't go to water. Is that what?
And then you just watch it.
So where do I see the distances up here?
Go ahead and hit F5 again. That's where you're going to stop.
Yeah.
Everything's still loaded in memory. So now you can come up here. Print that.
Oh, because
Distance, comma 7, comma 1 will question mark in front of it.
So yeah.
That should do it. Your code's good. Okay, so you're saying printing out. Does this equal 5?
Oh, okay.
So that looks like it's okay. So we're getting 5,
So there's 4
and 6.
And then when you like do the number calculations, and you're gonna copy and paste that and then add it together and then the last step.
So
Check some.
policy. Okay, so we'll try to put this 0 like string. That's going to give us that.
So for some reason, it seems like when it's reading this page, it's actually looking at that. It's going, I can't figure out if that's 0. I'm trying to treat it like a 0 string. Yeah. But the truth is, what if we get to the next step, which is to start this? Instead of starting at X, we're going to start at Y minus 1. That'll solve the problem. Why we have a problem, I'm not sure. What we're saying is, every time we get to a row, where we start counting our column, 1 for the
I was doing the assignment with students tonight. And it showed return error. I was getting 0.
0 will happen when the code isn't executed. If you're in break mode and you run that, in break mode, you can't execute the code. Put your 0 to do the same thing.
Well, thanks.
So if the code can't run, you either get error message or you get a 0.
So, I had missed Fibonacci's assignment, and in my opinion, just understood. Okay, yeah, I mean, because I'm here to learn, so you'll do it. For some reason, I thought they were only doing Monday's assignment, and that was the first Wednesday one, so I was like, oh, we just have a project due on Monday, so I was like, all right, sounds good, thank you.
I was a business.
So, Austin,